My name is Ernie Cabriana. That's Cabreana. Uh, I was born in Lampo, California, on September 3rd, 1930, during the tail end of the Great Depression. And my parents were from the Philippines, but around in the early 20s, uh, their parents, both sets of my parents and grandparents, were brought to Hawaii when they were recruited in the Philippines by the Sugar Planters Association in Hawaii to work in the sugarcane fields. But in 1924, they opened the ways for the Filipinos to come into the states here. So my grandparents uh, took my parents along with them here to the states, but different times. Like my father first came with his parents in the early around 1924, and my through LA, but my mother went with her parents through San Francisco, and they met in Stockton when they were teenagers. My mother was 16, my father was 18 years old, and they got married over there. And then along the way, and I was conceived there in Stockton, but they worked their way back down south here through Salinas for a while. And they ended in Lampo, California, where I was born on September 3rd, 1930. I was born in a farm labor camp, a tiny labor's shack, and the camp was near surf, because we're near the beach, not too far away. You could hear the beach in the roar of the beach from where we were living. Later on, I was still too small to remember that, but when I go visit, you sometimes look the area where I was born. My father, I never saw him working in the fields with the rest of the other guys that was working in the fields, cutting whatever they were doing. I always saw my father working as a caterpillar driver. And sometimes they work at nighttime, and everything. And we started. I started uh, in country schoolhouse with one teacher in the grade from the first to the sixth grade. And the students there were mostly Japanese, Mexicans, some Portuguese, and the Filipinos was me and my sisters and some of our cousins. So that's where we got educated. And that's the same time. At the same time, there where we educated us, we were learning proper English because we spoke the Visayan dialect where my parents were from, and we at the same time they already knew English too because they went to school in Hawaii. But their English was broken English, and without knowing it, we were speaking the same way, and we took it into when we moved to the city, we spoke like that, with our broken English, not knowing it. Yeah, we used to wonder why the people used to say you guys talk funny, you know. So I remember a lot of memories of living there in the farm. How the old timers used to really get together. They were all from the islands, and they were, they call really poor, but working. We're lucky to come here to the states working, and they always was helping each other out. Our friends and everybody come around whatever they had. The people from north come from Alaska or Seattle. They come by and drop off barrels of fish, or the guys from the south. See, you could tell the different seasons. They come by watermelon or whatever. They drop by the fruits there. Stop it. They come by, drop off asparagus. So that's the way the Filipinos were. And anytime they wanted a party, that was a time when whoever had a party, especially at the camp that we had, because it was a large camp, and they always had what they call lechon, and they would kill the pig. They go get a pig, and they always brought me around, the old timers. I was the favorite of the guys because, I could speak like them and hang around. Whenever they went, the old timers went. They always took me along with them, play tennis or to go chase the ball for them. Uh, go by, especially when they killed a pig. in the evening, uh, they slaughtered a pig by slitting the throat, and they had me hold a pan while the blood pouring, the steam coming out, and they put vinegar and stir it up, whatever it was, and then and then and in the evening they would barbecue the pig, and it would get cold because it was dark. It won't get cooked out way to the morning, and then my mother would come tell me to go in the house, go sleep now, but I'd sleep a little bit, then wake up, and then I'd run back out there to sit down. By that time, the guys were getting drunk because they had a bottle of wine there, they called tuba, and they're drinking, torturing the pig, and and then I listen to the stories, and they talk, dirty stories and everything. I pick it up because I got kind of wiser, really, because a lot of time they bring the pretty girls coming to town, coming to the camp there, and they go into and they talk about it. And I learned sex from those people, I was a young kid that didn't held back, and then the best part about the pigs was the best part was when the skin, this crackling was done. We call what the hell would they call the skin part? And then they said the corn is ready. They cut it in and I chew it. This is the best part. And I go in the house. And then the next day, when it was all done, people from all over, all friends used to come. So he used to come. He used to be in our camp like that. And then the music would. And we lived in the house where they had a living room, where everybody could sit around the edges, and people dance. And there was a Filipino orchestra of some kind, but always with that tub with the bass. They always use the wash tub, and the guys singing. So, and a lot of pretty girls. You know. So I remember that time. But we lived until 1930. I was born. 36, I started going to school. But 1941, we moved to Oakland, California, because my father was president of the Visayan Welfare League of America, and the reason why they had that he was what he used to call to help their fellow people here at Visayans have what do you call this kind of club to help when the Filipinos used to get sick, they had no families here to take care of them, and they couldn't. Some of them that wasn't associated with nothing. When they died, they got buried by the state, unknown grave, practically. So they formed the Visayan Welfare League of America, where the Visayans come from, the Visayan regions. That came here. They were all young, but the weather here changed around, and they get sick, mostly stroke, like that kind of stuff. They would call heart attacks, and they were buried by state because they didn't have no support. Family was back home. So what the heck did they call that now? That kind of association my father had. Anyway, it was a mutual, like a mutual aid, to help. That's what that's what it was. And so when the old timers they died up, or they had help, the association could bury them because they had the money used to pay for the amount of people there. They had the all chip in to pay for funeral. And because my grandfather, he died in Stockton, and he got buried by the state there, you know. But they had a gravesite for him. So it's a long story. Later on, I happened to find his gravesite, and I had back in 1998. I found it. It took me 4 years to find his gravesite, but and that's as close as I got to my grandfather. And then I found my grandmother. Then when I went to visit, I never knew them, but but I found my grandfather. And then my grandmother, she went back to the Philippines. And when she got, then my father retired after the war, and he went to the Philippines to settle down, and was with my grandmother when she died. So I got to visit my grandmother. So I got to to be near them in spirit. So that's what I feel good about. But anyway, get back to my moving to the city. So my father got a job in Vallejo, working the shipyards over there as a machinist helper. And the Second World War broke out. We moved there. We moved from Lompoc to Oakland around September during the school year. And I went from a small country school. I went to the city school. You know, we had two stories building. You know, that was in Oakland, and the war broke out. And um, oh, and while living there, and I got the experience of mixing up with different nationalities because when we were growing up in Oakland, I mean Richmond, Alampo, it was mostly just Mexican, Japanese. But when we moved to Oakland, man, they had those Negroes come from down south. Then the Okies came down. They had all kind of different people, and I wasn't too sharp in talking, or like arguing, and they play marbles. There'd be always a fuss, about it, or fighting, And he was the kind who had a Filipino temper, and when he would come to the argument, I couldn't argue, especially with the black guys. I mean, they were jazzy talkers, and they like to egg you on, tease. And maybe because had an accent, I didn't know I had an accent, but a little later on, when I grew up, I was thinking back to those days I did. That's where I learned how to fight. Yeah, I had a lot of fights. Instead of arguing, I stutter, and they would laugh at me. I still run into them and I start blowing. I had a lot of fights, like they call playground fights, like that. So, and then at the same time, my father was working in Vallejo. He used to commute between Oakland and Vallejo every day. But a good thing happened was that Richmond built 4 shipyards over there. So my father took advantage of that and went to welding school to be a welder. And I remember going with him, stay in the car there, and I could see the guys learning welding, and see the sparks behind the boots, And my father got a job in Richmond as a welder in shipyards. So we moved. We were living in an apartment in Oakland there where Jack London Square is now, but before there was apartments there right by the waterfront, about 2 blocks from the waterfront. When the sailors used to come in from the ships there, they used to walk down our street making a lot of noise, and it'd be outside would be just like in the movies with the fog, and you see those people, and so we moved to. My father got a job in Richmond, working in the shipyards as a welder. So we moved to El Cerrito. That's right next to Richmond, over the small town. And my father happened to find a house for us to stay in. But what it was there was a lot of Japanese in El Cerrito there that operated those flower nurseries made out of glass, right up the highway there. and they took the Japanese away to the relocation camps that time. So I don't know how my father found it, but he found a house where the Japanese used to live in behind those nurseries. From the highways, you couldn't see them. So there was a main house and a small little house, just as big as my living room here. There was one big room and a tiny little kitchen. But we moved in there, and he had no insulation. The kitchen barely could get a table for people to sit in. There was no drainage, and the drainage from the sink went to a ditch right outside that stunk like hell. But the Negro family had the main house where the boss used to live, I guess, but we live in a tiny shack. Probably a worker's shack, but we lived in there during the war. We managed, but then we started going to school, grammar school, down the tracks, and got acquainted with the Negro family. They had a couple kids, kid ages of my sister and me, a couple younger than each one of us. And they were a good family. They never bothered us. We never bothered them. They minded their own business. Yeah. And they were the Jones family. So me and Jimmy, the little kid, he used to be my mascot. He'd follow me all over the place. I kind of get to story to tell you about later as my story will go along. And living there was always open. Oh, you know what? My mother left us about a year into our residence there. All of a sudden, my mother, first, I'm jumping stories. Later on, my mother got a job in the shipyards also, and she was a burner. So one day, she never came home. She left us. She found somebody else, and I guess she didn't like the way we were living and all the kids. Well, I don't know, whatever. She just left us. And my father, we like in Filipino style, they train us kids early on how to cook rice, you know, and we knew how to cook rice already, do the dishes. I remember when we were raised up, we were standing on the chairs to wash the dishes. And that's we're still in the camp. One would wash the dishes, and the other would hand it to the other, the other would wipe. And the only kind of dishes we had those days was the tin dishes, tin cups. We never had no forks, no knives. It was always the big tablespoon. That's the way we lived. And but as long as we had rice, we managed. If we could turn that rice into fry it, make pudding, put sugar and milk for the pudding, or you can fry it. If you don't have no meat, we had our rice, we lived. That's the way we got along sometimes. And we hardly ever had any milk. We grew up not drinking no milk. So somehow or another, we just got along. And then my father always had something for us, but paydays he'd bring some that we'd stock up in the groceries to take us for the week. Go to Chinatown, buy some squid. We had all that stuff. And so when we went to school, I was the oldest, and so my mother left us. The youngest out of seven, but the youngest was only a year and a half when my mother left us. So Gilberty, next to the youngest, had to had to took care of my brother, and she missed the first 3 or 4 years of school taking care of that kid. And then when he was able to go to school, then she started school. So that's how we took care of each other. And that was in, and then so we took care of each other, and then we were lucky that we didn't have what do you call these days now. People report about kids running around losing no parents. But we lived back at a highway, lived behind the nurseries, and nobody can see what we're doing over there. And the Negro family, the Jones, they never said nothing, never bothered us. And in fact, Mrs. Jones always sent me to the grocery store to go buy her some, groceries and everything. I would come back home with 2 big bags. I walk about 6 blocks to Hunky Dory store, stuff like that. And Jimmy, her son, used to come along with me, but she didn't trust him to buy the stuff. But we would be able to. She gave us enough money for us to buy the big hunk candy, and we were happy, and talk all the time. He was a really good kid, and wherever I went, that little kid was with me. So anyway, we lived through there during the war in that little house, and when the war ended, or just when the war ended, Second World War ended. The behind our house was a big water tank that we got water from, and the water from the water tank used to go to the boiler room where the boiler used to heat the water to go into the nurseries to get the nurseries hot to grow the flowers. And the water tank fell down. This big water tank, the big struts, and he missed our house. And it's missed our house between the Jones house and our house, just like splashed it. So we didn't have no water. It was getting to springtime. We didn't have no water no more. And Joneses moved out. But we stayed there. And next, about 50 yards from our house was the Santa Fe Railroad track ran that way. And we were, beside our house. So my sister and my father bought a 5-gallon water can with a handle, And, we used to see Filipino movies and stuff like that. The Filipinos carrying the water with a bamboo pole. And we had a lot of bamboo pole because the Japanese ran the nursery. They had all kinds of bamboos, And we used to carry the can. Me and my sister, Adeline, she was next to me, born next to me. So we go up the railroad, bank. It was high. Cross a little trestle, go down the other side because they have right back of our house now they got this water gutter, the drains from the curbs. These two now they collect them in the water collectors. That next to our house, it wasn't a water collector. It was a big ditch, like a creek. And when it rained, that was full from one end to the other, over our head. So went over to the water. So when my sister and I had to go over to trestle, go down the other side, go to the other farmhouse, nursery place over there, go get water from them. We were small, just 14. I was about 14, like that. Then sometime I would slide down the grade, coming home, I slide from the mud, get mud on it. When I went to school, that's how we were raised. And then finally my sister got kind of pissed off about the living conditions there because during the summer that one time they got to come over here to Santa Maria, Guadalupe, stay with the uncles and them, and they live right by the beach. So they used to go to the beach and everything, and then they were living in a farm there and help run up down the fields and play around, kind of help work or whatever. And they liked it. So when they came back to El Cerrito, and then we had to come back to the life that we were facing, and they complained to me. They tell Dad that if he can get us a better house, because if he don't, we want to go back to stay with Uncle. I said, you know what? I'll see what I can do. And my father he was a stern guy. He don't joke around, and you never know when he's going to be mad. So I said, I'll see what I can do. So one day I went to talk to my father. I said, my sisters, they want to go back to stay with our uncle back in Santa Maria, Guadalupe. Why? He says, because they can't stand these conditions anymore. And you know what? He didn't chew me out. He told me, I'll see what I can do. So I just let it go at that. And then, not too long after that, I was going junior high school already, and I came home. They had what they call AM and PM close. I was going to school, junior high school in Richmond. L3 was connected to Richmond, and and they had AM and PM classes because there was so many. The town got big. A lot of people working in shipyards, so the junior high, Longfellow Junior High, couldn't handle all this, so they had to divide the classes. The lower grades start early in the morning, like 7 to 12, and then the higher grades go from 12 to 5, something like that. So I used to start in AM, and then you get to the part where I was in the PM class, and I came home in the afternoon. Nobody was home. It got dark and nobody was home. What happened to everybody, And then I saw the light of the car coming down, because the highway was under, but the grade, the road came down to our house, the dirt road, and it was the family. My sister bailed out of the car, running to me. They call me Dudo, Dudo. Daddy, what's a brand new house, Yeah, really, a brand new house, Where is it? And they give me the address. I had a bicycle, that I forgot to tell you that me and my buddy got a job in a nursery that we were part of, and the weekends, and we got paid. It was summertime that we got the job. School was out, and I think we got like 10 cents an hour, for 10 hours a day, and then and it happened that the boss, what the hell was their name? He had a bicycle. It was the daughter's bicycle, and she had outgrown it, and said, if you want the bicycle, you work the weekend out, and you can have. So that's how I got my bicycle. I worked the weekend. So I had a bicycle when my sister told me Dad bought the house. So I got in the house and rode over to my buddy Henry Arias' house, Portuguese guy, and it was like about 8, 9 o'clock at night, maybe 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock maybe, and yeah, around 7 because I got home about 9 or 10, and I told Henry about it. He had a bicycle. We rode from our house all the way down to Richmond to look at the house, and I said, "Holy cow, man! It's a white man's in where the white people were living on." I said, "They're not going to like us over here," and it was the third house from the corner, in red, white, and blue. I said, "Holy man, that was like to us that was a rich man's house." Man, I was so happy, that house. And then when we were living the way we lived before, we had tin plates. I think I mentioned it. I talk about it already, about spoons and everything like that. So when it was time to move in that house, you know what happened? I don't know who Dad got, but everything was new in that house. Even had Venetian blinds. We had our own bedrooms. I had my own, and my sisters had their own. And my young brothers slept with my father. And they had 2 bathrooms, No, wait a minute. 1 bathroom and 1 washroom. Yeah. And a garage, and the whole bit, hardwood floors, and all brand new furnitures. And the TV didn't come out yet at that time, brand new furniture, and piano, and a radio, a radio or a record player. I think he charged all that stuff from Montgomery Wards, the appliances, And then we had ceramic plates, cups. I mean, everything was filled in the house. My own bed, my own new bed, new blankets. Dad went all out. Later on, he told me, you know what? When he got that, because the war came on, and he says he wanted to take care of the family first, then see what the situation was in the Philippines. So he did a real good job, We was happy. So that was the beginning of our life, growing up right there, It's a busy room, huh?